Good morning. We've been spending a long time this season between two worlds. And yet, you will bear in mind always that there are not two worlds. There's only one, the world that God created. That world of which it is said that it is good. All that God created is good. Anything that God did not create was not created. So there is really no such thing as an unreal world, no such thing as a counterfeit world. There is only one world, and this is that world. But about this magnificent spiritual world, we entertain a false concept, so that when we look out at this ocean, instead of seeing right across there to Australia and New Zealand and the South Sea Islands, which we should be doing because it's all a part of God's creation out there, and it's all one world, we are stopped by what we call an horizon. And there is no such thing as an horizon. Set sail on a ship as Columbus did, and you will soon discover it isn't there. That sense of limitation represents our sense of limitation, and it does not represent anything out there. In the same way, we look out at this world through the newspapers and radio and television, and we become aware of hatred, bias, bigotry, envy, jealousy, malice, disease, sin, fear, man's inhumanity to man, and because we are judging by appearances, because we are seeing through finite sense, we say, what a terrible world. And yet, there is no such world, because God created all that was created, and all that God created is good. Therefore, there is no such world out there. All of this evil, error, limitation, represents a universal concept of this world. And it is based on the error that came into the world with whatever that experience was that is called Adam and Eve, in which we accepted good and evil as having actual existence. But just as there is no darkness, darkness is an absence of light, neither is there any such thing as evil. Evil represents our ignorance of the truth of being. And every bit of discord that you or I experience represents that measure of our ignorance. It is for this reason that Paul could say, I do not claim to have fully attained. While I know all the truth, I know what truth is. I know that I am God. I know that I live, yet not I, Christ liveth my life. I know that I do not sin. Yet I am aware of a sense of sin that sometimes touches me. And he did experience it because he accepted the carnal mind as the mind of truth's enemies. And so it is that we might truthfully say that all of the truth that ever has been revealed since the beginning of time, we know. Every single bit of it, we know. But we can't prove it all, and we can't demonstrate it all. And the reason is that we have not attained the full consciousness of what we know. We are still in spiritual darkness to some extent. So that while we spiritually realize enough to overcome some of our major problems, we have a long way to go yet before we evolve out of the physical sense of body, physical sense of universe. And let me remind you, there is no such thing as a physical body. There is no such thing as a physical universe, because God is spirit. God is infinite. Therefore, all that God made is spiritual, incorporeal. There was a time when the physicists, the scientists, ridiculed this revelation. This revelation had its beginning with some individual who was known as Krishna because he had attained the Christ consciousness. It was repeated again by Gautama, the Buddha, who again attained the Christ consciousness. It was repeated again by Christ Jesus, who also attained Christ awareness. And every mystic who has ever attained the mystical consciousness has known and revealed that God is spirit, and therefore this is a spiritual universe. But the world couldn't accept it, because the world was what the Master called this world, that is, the world of material sense. Today, it is being more widely accepted that there is no physical body and no physical universe. Because, first of all, we have such great scientists as Dr. von Braun, who finally acknowledges that there is no matter, that what is called matter is mind. And of course, mind is not material. And recently, there was a theological conference, and at the conclusion of this conference, after all of the talks were in, the minister who was the presiding officer summed it all up in one paragraph of a talk in which he said, we can now understand that the error of the world is in that we have looked on the world with objectivity, believing that the reality was in the objects of sense, and placing our values there. Whereas now we know that the reality is within, is spiritual. And we will now become a world of men who will be contemplators and will live lives of meditation, contemplating reality and placing the value in the Spirit. Well, I don't know how else you could sum up the mystical teachings of all times, right up to and including this message. But this is what lies ahead of us. We are in the golden age where science and religion must come together in the realization that the real world is a world of spirit or consciousness, that consciousness is really the secret word of life, and that all of this universe is a projection of consciousness, and that your world and my world is exactly the nature of our consciousness, or of our state of consciousness. Try to understand this. There is one infinite, spiritual, divine consciousness which is called God, or may be called God, and that infinite consciousness is your and my individual consciousness, and is the consciousness of all mankind, human, animal, vegetable, mineral. This infinite, divine, universal consciousness is individual consciousness, your consciousness and mine. Therefore, instead of judging by appearances as to the nature of our world, we must now turn within and contemplate, meditate, and learn the nature of our world until we discover, as we do, with sufficient meditation and contemplation, that all of the issues of life are bound up in the word I. My world is the product of the I that I am. Now, if Joel were wholly unconditioned, then my world would be wholly and entirely spiritual and incorporeal, and harmonious, eternal and immortal. But Joel has only been able to manifest a certain degree or measure of that infinite divine consciousness. And therefore, Joel's world is exactly the measure of divine consciousness that Joel can realize. And whatever still remains of error in the life of Joel represents that degree of his darkness or unillumined state or conditioned state. Let us say that Joel is still conditioned to some extent by a Hebrew ancestry, and he is further conditioned to some extent by American birth, and he is still conditioned to some extent by personal love of family. All of these things are conditioning elements. Why? Because if you wholly transcend your Hebrew or Christian religious background, you will be the Son of God, brother unto all men, and there will no longer be any of these religious limitations in your nature. if you can transcend your Americanism, you will be a citizen of the world, a citizen of the household of God. I hope you realize that I am not saying I should disown my Hebrew ancestry. On the contrary, I am slightly proud of it. That's one of my limitations or restrictions. Do not think that I mean that we must be unpatriotic or not love America. No. On the contrary, we love it more because of the great institutions that have shown the world the way to the freedom of life. But let's rise above my country, right or wrong, and while loving our country more than ever, let us be sure that we also love every other country on the globe more than ever, so that in addition to our Hebrewism or Christianityism or Vedantism or Buddhism, in addition to that, we really become citizens of the household of God. For that is the vision that Krishna had, that is the vision that Buddha had, that is the vision that Christ Jesus had. He also had a Hebrew ancestry, but he transcended it. Not that he loved the Hebrews less, but that he loved the whole world of mankind more. None of the disciples outgrew their Hebrewism, nor did Paul. But they transcended it, so that while they could love it, they could embrace the entire world of men in that love. And that is what I mean by conditioned. We are only unconditioned when we have broken the fetters of finite sense, when we have accepted God as the one Father of all, and when we have accepted ourselves as brothers and sisters, regardless of what we may be by nationality, race, creed, religion, etc. Now, in the same way, because of our early family ties, we are fettered by a sense of physicality. We were taught from infancy not to catch cold or not to bunk our knees or our heads or to fall down. In other words, a physical sense was built up in us from the very moment of conception. In fact, before conception, our parents had the dream of two dots coming together and forming one. Two cells coming together, a male cell and a female cell, so that they might have a child. We were conceived on that whole basis of physical sense, and we aren't physical. I have never entered a cell any more than I have entered a physical body. Yet we are to this day conditioned. And in our healing work, I can tell you this, after 35 years of active healing work, that the only barrier to better healing work is that very limitation or conditioning which still operates in my consciousness to make me believe that my patient has a physical body that has to have its fever reduced or its lump removed or something of that kind. Consciously, I know better. Intellectually, I know that I am I, and thou art I, incorporeal, spiritual, harmonious, and whole. And yet there are times when I am asked for help that old conditioning comes and says, what can I do about it? Or I better sit up all night. Why? Why? Because I still find occasion for having to rise out of the belief that you or I, that we are physical and have physical bodies. So it is, I am spirit, I am consciousness, and I am the infinite divine consciousness which is God, because all that God is, I am. And all that the Father hath is mine, and this is a universal truth of you. This is the real world. In the measure, then, that we remain conditioned to entertaining a physical sense of the universe, we will know fear and we will know limitation. Oh yes, let us take the subject of supply. You may think that only poor people have a problem of supply. No, I have some very wealthy people call upon me at times for help on the subject of supply. Even the largest corporations in the world sometimes need help on the subject of supply. And why do you think this is? Because we entertain a physical sense of supply, and we believe that supply is money, securities, property, merchandise. Believe it or not, the deepest student among you sometimes entertains a sense of supply as being physical. And the moment that you do this, fear enters. Because when you think of supply as physical, you immediately start to measure how much or how little is available. Now you see, God never created a material universe, and there isn't any. There is only our material sense of universe. And therefore, supply is spiritual. Therefore, supply is infinite. Let us see if we could prove that. Almost all of you can go back in memory to the Depression years. And so, just for the sake of this lesson, let us do it for a moment. And let's look out on this world and see if there was any less of vegetables, of fruits, of coal, oil, diamonds, platinum, uranium, any less of birds, any less of fish, any less of water, any less of salt, sugar. Was there even any less dollars? Did the gold supply disappear? Were there any less of pearls? No, you see, the supply was just as infinite in the 1930s as it is in this inflation time of 1960s. Just as much supply. And yet, think, and I speak only of our own country, with its infinite abundance, think of the poverty there was, the lack, the limitation there was in those 10 years. And yet, there was no less of supply. Why then were we individually limited? And there is only one answer. We entertain a physical sense of supply. And as long as we do, we will be limited. And that is why even corporations with millions and millions and millions of dollars sometimes have financial problems. That is why all of the governments of the world are bankrupt. Not because there is any less supply than there ever was, but because we entertain a physical sense of supply. You can watch your own experience that in the degree, and only in the degree, that you can lose your physical sense of supply, your own supply will increase and multiply and multiply and multiply. Not by doing anything out here, merely by becoming a contemplator, a meditator, and leaving the so-called outside world with its sense of limitation alone, and coming to realize the meaning of this. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, and the water. I am come that ye might have life, and that ye might have it more abundantly. I am the resurrection, not the medicine bottle, not the surgery, not the diets. I am the resurrection. And I and my Father are one. Therefore, all that the Father hath is mine. Therefore, infinity is the measure of my supply. But not merely my supply. There too is limitation. Just putting that word my in brings about a limitation. Since I embody the infinity of supply, I am also your supply. And that supply is infinite. We are conditioned then by entertaining a physical sense of the universe and a physical sense of body. On the night before the New York Fair opened, it was announced in New York that this sit-in would take place, stall-in, to prevent the opening of the fair, and the leader of the group announced that nothing in heaven or on earth can stop it. And it didn't take place. There were those functioning in this message who sat and looked right out there at that statement. Nothing in heaven or on earth can stop it. Is there any power in heaven or on earth greater than I am? Now ponder that. Contemplate that statement. Is there any power in heaven or on earth greater than I am? I am life eternal. I am the life of the world. I am the resurrection. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, the water. I am the only power there is, and beside me there is no power. Contemplate that. Meditate upon that. Is there a power in heaven or on earth greater than I am? And then face the waves with that, and the storms, and the depressions, and the epidemics, and the threats of war. Because, as you have learned in this message, the secret of harmonious living is in impersonalizing. There is no evil man. There are no evil men. There are no evil powers. All there is a physical, finite sense of God, man, and the universe. Even God has been reduced to statues. God has been reduced, and God's power, to medals. God and God's power has been reduced to men's names. And in that lies finite existence. For I am that person, I am God. And beside me there is no power in heaven or on earth, for I alone am. Prayer, as it is understood in the world, is likewise physical and finite. God, send me my rent. God, remove my rheumatism. God, send my children through school. God, give me an automobile. Or if I have one, let the next one be a better one. Do you not see that this is not prayer at all, that this is paganism? Do you not see that every looking to God for any form of material good is the same paganism that was indulged in by the ancients who prayed to God for larger crops of food, larger herds, larger catches of fish? Even in the days of the disciples, they prayed for bigger catches. Do you not see this has all been perpetuated from the pagan days when women prayed to God to let them have babies? Men prayed for more power to destroy their enemies. This is paganism. The mystical prayer is a conscious communion and realization with the source, in which it is realized that God is spirit. Therefore, all that exists is spiritual, therefore infinite, omnipresent. The mystical prayer knows that the name of God is I. and that embodied in I is all, not only that I shall ever need, but the intelligence to know when, where, and how much. And to provide 12 baskets full for those momentarily in darkness. The mystical prayer knows that all power is given unto me. All mystical prayer knows that I means omniscience. Nothing has to be told to omniscience. Nothing has to be asked of omniscience. Omniscience functions in and through our silence. Mystical prayer is a complete silence from taking thought based on an understanding that I embody infinity, and that because the nature of I is omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, Joel can be still and know that I am God. This is mystical prayer. Be still and know that I am God, and then see what happens. See what follows. Do not judge after appearances. Judge righteous judgment. Do not judge that there is a little or a lot. There is neither a little nor a lot. There is infinity at all times. Someday I must read to you some doggerel that came through my thought in the early days of the Depression. That started out like this: supposing you were God, your people prayed up to you, Father, give us food that we may not starve. Give us clothing that we may not freeze. Give us fuel. Give us the necessities of life. Oh God, give us these necessities without which we're perishing. What would you do if you were God? How would you answer? And then it goes on to show how God answered. Do not pray up to me. The earth is filled with my glory. The coal is there, the oil is there, the food is there, the cattle on 1,000 hills are there, the fish is in the sea, the birds are in the air. Do not pray up to me. I can do no more than I have done. Oh, it went on for a long, long time. It was very, very complete about it. But that was the essence of it. And so sometimes when you are tempted to pray for something or someone, ask yourself if God can do more than God is doing. If God can be more than God already is. If God is neglecting His universe. And you'll soon settle into silence and realize, no, thy grace is my sufficiency, yesterday, today, and forever. Thy grace is with me whether I'm as bad as the woman taken in adultery or the thief on the cross, or whether I'm as good as the best of men and women. Thy grace, thy rain falls on the just and the unjust. Thy grace is here and now. Let me not blaspheme God and accuse God of being absent from where I am or unmindful of my needs. It is God's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, if only I know that I am God and I am in the midst of me. And I am omniscience, the all-knowing, omnipotence, the all and only power, omnipresence, here, where I am, in this very bed of sickness or in this hell of sin, or in this deeper hell of self-righteousness that makes me think I'm good. When there is none good but God, and none healthy but God, and none wealthy but God, since the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And when we stop claiming virtues of our own, and when we stop claiming health of our own or wealth of our own, and realize the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, but thank God, all that the Father hath is mine and thine. It isn't mine because of any virtue of any nature. It isn't mine because of family, race, religion. It is mine because of divine sonship. I am joint heir with you, with Christ, to all the heavenly riches. This is mystical prayer, as against the paganistic prayer of material sense, physical sense, that looks out upon a world and calls it physical because of appearances, and then prays to have it made into a better physical universe, a better physical body, a better physical wealth. Now, we will not lead the mystical life until we lead the life of the contemplator, the meditator. This is the infinite way's contribution to this age. This and the name and nature of God, and the name and nature of error. This comprises the totality of this message. All else is just explanations, modes of practice, means of practice. But here you have the essence of the message. If you know the name and nature of God, you'll know the name and nature of man and of the universe. If you know the name and nature of error, you will know the nothingness of appearances. And then, this that the Master called this world, which you now understand to be not a world, but a false sense of the world, that begins to lessen in your experience. And we have the hope that someday it may entirely evaporate and we'll be completely at home in the Father's consciousness. Be watchful that even as you are aware of the human situation, that you do not allow it to influence the nature of your prayers. For instance, we are approaching an election season. Each of you has at the moment some conviction or other that makes you more partial to one of the major political parties than another. And even within that party makes you more partial to one candidate than another candidate. And this is inevitable. But as you enter prayer, be sure that you do not pray for the success of either party or candidate, and thereby set yourself up as a judge. You have opinions, same as I have, but at least I know that my opinion may turn out to be incorrect, because it too is based on the conditioning of all of my life in the business world as well as this world. So I could make mistakes of human judgment. I will never pray that this party or that party be elected, and yet when it comes to voting, I will vote for the one that at that moment appears to me to be nearest right. But my prayers will be that there are no powers on heaven, in heaven, or on earth greater than I am, and the will of God will be done on earth as it is in heaven, even if it has to nullify my particular vote. And be assured I will be very willing for it to be nullified if my human judgment is not in accord with the divine will, which really means the good of all. Yes, the study and practice of this message must be having an effect in the business world, because it is more and more being introduced into it. Undoubtedly, it has an effect in the political world, but let the effect not be your will or mine. Let us not substitute the will of those in authority for your will or my will. That will be no improvement. Let us rather introduce God's will. And this we do in one way. There is no power in heaven or on earth greater than I am. And then let omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence have its way in human consciousness. Eventually, we will bring this into one of the most difficult aspects of human life, and that is our family life. We do not realize it, but many of our physical and mental discords come really through our family life. The little differences, naggings inside, repressions, sometimes break forth. And the reason is that our will isn't being done in that family life to the extent that we believe it should. And because the family life is the one closest to us, it is the one most irritating. This can be overcome too, and will eventually, when we come to that same realization. There is no power in heaven or on earth greater than I am, and I do not need my personal will to be done. I'm satisfied to let this will of omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence have its way. Oh, that's a difficult place to come to, because there our conditioning insists that we have our way. In fact, there's an ancient superstition about marriage that sort of helps it along. It says that the two become one. And then we assume that I am that one. Oh, if only the two could become one, and let the I that I am be that one. What a difference there would be in marriage. They want to know how far off the millennium is. Well, measure it by that measuring stick. How soon can we bring this to bear in our family life? When we do, we will have accomplished it in our political life, our national and international life. We will have set aside our personal will. Don't all congratulate Emma that she has a perfect life because I'm so perfect in that, because she will tell you that I haven't attained it fully. But this is the secret of life. Be still and know that I am God. And then make Joel be still. And then you will see how this divine impulse comes through. It does in a measure. That is why we have healing works. It does in a measure. Joel can be still, and you can be still in a measure. And let the I, which is omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, and needs no help from Joel or Mary or Bill, let it come through and watch harmony established on earth as it is in heaven. This is mystical prayer. Be still and know that I am God. And then be still. In the presence of this spiritual realization, the material sense of existence has no power, or rather loses its power, its seeming power, its claim to power. Just as you have witnessed in healings that with spiritual realization, even physical symptoms have disappeared. Physical germs have disappeared. Physical growths have disappeared. Physical fevers have disappeared. In other words, physical sense dissolves in the presence of this realization of I am God. There is a spirit in man. Be still and let it flow. You see, the spirit in man isn't he or she. It really isn't even it, because it is I. The spirit in man is I. I am the spirit in man. It is neither he, she, nor it. In our writings, we have referred to it mostly as it. But this was only to break down that false sense of God as he. And then later the God as he and she. But actually, God isn't it. Because that would leave I and it. And until you've overcome that it, as well as the he and she, you have not attained God awareness. God is not it, God is I. God is only it in the sense that God isn't male or female. God isn't he or she. God isn't father or mother. But once you reach that place of realization, then you must discard God as it and be still and know that I am God. Then you are abiding in the Word and letting the Word abide in you, and no evil can come nigh thy dwelling place. Do you see how the message of the infinite way continually breaks down concepts of God, man, and the universe, even concepts of prayer, until eventually you have to sing out, "You have taken my Lord away. You have taken all my favorite beliefs away, all my ancient concepts and superstitions away, all my family traditions of religion away. You've stripped me." And this is its object and its goal and its purpose, until you can truthfully say, "Be still. Be still, Joel. Be still, religion. Be still, minister, priest, rabbi. Be still, everybody and everything, and know that I am God. And beside me, there is no other." Thank you. Thank you.